go back to 2010, remember that Theresa May had this objective set her by David Cameron, which was to reduce net immigration to the tens of thousands, which wasn't a coalition policy, it was just a Conservative objective. And of course, she couldn't control immigration from the European Union, and so she had to be kind of relentless in coming up with endless policy initiatives to tackle non-EEA migrants and undocumented migrants, or illegal migrants, as she saw it.
Yes. Hang on, that's crucial, isn't it?
It is crucial, isn't it?
Because that suddenly makes some of this make sense. If it's undocumented, then the situation is illegal, whereas what we're learning from the Windrush thing is that undocumented can be the opposite of illegal.
Absolutely, it's got every right to be here. It's
okay,
just,
well that
sort
helps.
The victims of a slightly incompetent system that's been in place for decades, and so they set up this interministerial group on migrant access to benefits and public services, which just the number of times I thought I'd never have to think about MATBAPS.
MATBAPS, what a wonderful acronym, but crucially not. Forgive me for even extending it further. Not IMATBAPS, but MATBAPS, so migrant access to benefits and public services, not illegal migrant access to benefits and so she's looking at everybody, presuming guilt until innocence is proved.
Yeah, the view was that our entire system was a soft touch, both for legal migrants who might be here but not entitled to benefits and public services, who ought to therefore be paying for them, if they, get a GP appointment whilst on holiday, for example, or health tourists, which again, a tiny problem, which is talked about as if it's a huge kind of multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yep.
And then also tackling illegal immigrants, with this absolutely kind of clear view that life was dead cushy for anyone who's an illegal immigrant, because you could just swan about claiming benefits, getting bank accounts, and living off the state.
So the Home Office effectively...
It's actually mostly just a really, really tough life.
Well, you'd imagine so. You wouldn't want it for yourself, would you, or your loved ones? But what you're describing is the Home Office operating in an alternative reality written for them by the Daily Mail and UKIP.
You put it better than me, but yeah. And so that meant that this interministerial task force, which included kind of ministers from every department, was set the task of going through every single part of public service delivery, from driving licenses to benefit claims or pension claims through to the NHS, and making sure that you couldn't get access to anything that the state provided unless you had your paperwork. Wow. Which is kind of a problem if you have, as we do, thousands, if not tens of thousands, or even millions of people who are here legally but undocumented
because it's in a shoebox in your mum's attic or something like that, or you got lost in a house move. I mean, there's a million different reasons why you might not have the necessary documents.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what the Home Office has completely got lost touch with is the sense that just because you haven't got the right documents, you're not a sort of criminal, drug smuggling, people trafficking kind of gangster.
You're a retired nurse who's simply never realised that you had to do this stuff. So you remember that, do you? That kind of almost a psychological position where these people must be bad guys. They must be baddies if they haven't got the paperwork. So forgive me, but it's a bit like when the fellow out of the professionals was asked for his papers as he was getting on that train in Germany near the end of the Great Escape. If you haven't got the papers, you must be in the wrong.
Well, I've never seen the movie because I'm a failure as a human being, obviously, but it sounds about right. And I think partly because even though they do know that there are people who don't have the right documents, again, they have this mindset that it is better to have a system which rounds up 100 legal migrants than a system which allows one illegal migrant to get regularised.
And that is where...
Again, because if you're just obsessed with this tens of thousands figure, because you're trying to cut immigration, you kind of don't mind about the collateral damage to people. And I think that mindset just got incredibly firmly embedded and driven by ministers and their advisors, unfortunately.
Well, who? Are we talking?
Every single person in the Home Office. I mean, it's really relevant for refugees as well, because we fought really hard to get an assumption that you're supposed to believe what an asylum seeker says about being tortured, raped, abused, and persecuted, unless you can prove that it's not the case.
Yes.
And they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to treat your claims as credible. And they basically don't. And it's the same with all of these people who are having this experience, is that instead of there being a presumption that they're telling the truth, there is a presumption that they are not and that they are irregular. And that's because they're terrified of any people who don't have a legitimate claim to be here being able to regularize their status. Now, for me, I would rather a system that errs on the side of compassion, actually,
decency,
and understanding, and accept that there will be a few people who, maybe actually they came over for 5 minutes and then went back to Jamaica, or maybe they once smuggled a drug, somehow do get through. Because for me, that is a price worth paying for the thousands and thousands of people who played such an important part in our society. We have to recognise, though, that there is a trade-off. A system that is simple enough for everybody who's got a legitimate claim to navigate will also be simple enough for some very rare abusive people to take advantage of. I'm comfortable with that, and I know that the Home Office isn't, and I hope that they can kind of pivot their approach.
Because there is no third way, is there? It is either treat everybody guilty until they can prove themselves innocent and throw the Windrush generation and possibly, as we're hearing on the programme today, some other constituencies of 1950s and 60s migrant workers as well under the bus, or you carry on, or you turn it around and start returning to the days of...
There is, because they imagine that there's a perfect system where you can...
Of course, yes.
You can get it exactly right on every case. You can't.
Because humans are involved.
Exactly. Humans are involved. There's paperwork that's been destroyed for good or ill. Like you say, house fires or house moves or divorces. And so you just be kind. But we absolutely do not have an immigration system that considers kindness to be a legitimate purpose.